multiple dreams, and each dream from my journal has its own name. So you'll be getting names as I go, but the Lord insisted and said that the title of this message is The Beast of Revelation 13. The title of this message is Obama, semicolon, the Beast of Revelation 13. So there's going to be no, you're just attacking a black man. You're just trying to take a black man down. If you want to follow this black man, after the comprehensive coverage of the dreams and the spiritual revelations that you're going to hear today, I'm going to be the first one to say, go ahead with my blessing. Prosper and be strong in it. Insist on your own way. And then when you see the things that God says will come to pass, it will be too late for millions and millions and millions of stubborn people to turn back. So, Obama, the Beast of Revelation 13, was published in a limited form in the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. Let me just check here. The dream is from 2020. So the date of the dream is November 23rd, 2020, but it was published on January the 6th, 2021. And now that we have the main title, the first dream that you're going to hear, it was published in a limited fashion on the blog, and the title for it is The Angel Who Entered the Man. So the first dream is November 23, 2020, The Angel Who Entered the Man. So I was having a very troubled night. That's what happens when you have dreams that God is going to try and talk to you and reveal very important things. Sometimes the enemy is able to perceive when the Lord is transmitting messages to us spiritually, and the enemy will always try to get in the mix. The enemy will always try to intervene. He will always try to interrupt, which is sometimes why when I'm here and I'm prophesying, you will suddenly hear loud bursts of noise. You will hear loud bursts of traffic. You will hear all kinds of interruptions. But because God has trained me well, I do not stop, because I know that that is simply spiritual warfare against the enemy, against the message coming out. So I was having a lot of spiritual interference, but there was one dream that I managed to remember out of a night of very poor sleep. So I was in a house and I came into the living room. I was in a house. It was a family house, my family's house. And I was in one part of the house. And then I came into the living room, and to my surprise, my entire family was seated there. So these details, I did not publish them on the blog because I don't like involving my family or even my personal life into things. But at times God shows you things, and here is the full. So I'm in a house, family house, and I come into the living room, and I'm surprised to see the whole family sitting there. And they're sitting, and they're clearly sitting in anticipation of something. So they're getting ready to watch something. It's apparently a big broadcast that's coming on TV. So something big was about to be announced on national TV, and my family was there, and somehow I was in another part of the house, and I didn't know, but I came in time. Everybody was just sitting quietly and getting ready. And I asked, and I said, what's going on? What are you all doing? And my father said, well, we're about to have Sunday service. They said that there's no more church. So now we're going to be doing it at home. And I was surprised at hearing that, but I said, okay, what are we learning today? Have they made an announcement about what the sermon is going to be? And my father answered again, and he said, they told us that it's a surprise. They told us that it's a surprise. So I was very confused. And I thought, if church is going to be on TV, if they say that there's no more church, why aren't they at least telling us who's preaching to us? What's the message going to be? But anyway, I turned to this screen, the big screen of the TV, and I waited. And then the TV comes on, and it's a live broadcast, meaning that they're showing us something that is apparently happening right there. But I realized later that this was God's method of showing an entire process that had already partially taken place and will be completed in the future. I saw an African village scene, okay? So I saw an African village, and all the people had gathered in one place. They had all been summoned in that village for a very special purpose. An announcement had been made. All the people in the village had gathered. It was some kind of general council general village council that they were hosting, because the entire community, I'm saying even the weak, even the old who don't usually leave their homes to go and travel for whatever it may be, everyone, man, woman, and child, had gathered, and they were there waiting for something. And then the meeting was called to order, and a man arose in their midst, and he began to address them. He was a great man among them, a very, very great man in this African community. And when he rose up to speak, I noticed how the people's body language adjusted to show him the proper respect. There was only one problem that I, Celestial, could see as I was watching this on the TV. This person was an absolute madman. And I'm saying madman, and that is actually a kind description. The madness that was in this black man that was addressing this African village, and they were treating him like the highest authority among them. The madness can only be compared to the madness that the Bible speaks of in the man that was in the Gadarenes. That man in the Bible was cutting himself with stones. He would cry out in anguish and agony because of how many demons he had. He was completely unkempt, completely disheveled, a very tormented soul. This man had exactly that type of madness. You could see in his eyes that he was crazy. His hair was all matted, it was disheveled, and it had started to clump together in the opening stages of forming natural dreadlocks. So these are not the nice dreadlocks that you get when you go to the store or you go to the salon and they carefully prepare your hair. It's just when you don't wash the hair, when you don't oil the hair, you don't comb it, and you just keep sleeping on it, and dirt gets in it, sand gets in it, everything gets in it from daily life, and you haven't taken care of it for a long time. That's how his hair was, and his beard was the same. It was starting to mat, it was starting to lock, like that. His eyes were blood red. I'm not saying his eyes were just mildly bloodshot. His eyes were actually red. And he looked so crazy. Please excuse the light. He looked so crazy. And yet these people were so respectful of this man. They were showing him the utmost respect, as if he showed no signs of madness. But I remember thinking, that's an absolute crazy person. What are these people doing with that man? What are these people doing so close to that man? So he stood up and he began his address, and everyone was locked in. Everyone was listening so carefully, and he was speaking their language to them. But all of a sudden, right in the middle of his speech or whatever, a very strong wind, a powerful wind came and snatched up that man and whirled him into a body of water that the people were next to. So I hadn't noticed that there was a body of water next to those people until such time as the wind picked up that man and slammed him in the body of water. And when he slammed into the water, he died. Now, when the wind picked up this man and blew him there, I, who was watching, was immediately reminded of another dream that the Lord gave me. I think it might have been 2015. The Lord gave me a dream where I saw that President Obama was in power, and he had a very powerful dog. He had a very powerful and vicious dog. And this dog only answered to Obama. And what Obama would do is he would sick the dog on other countries. He would loose the dog on other countries, and the dog would run to people in those other countries, people that usually had brown skin. The dog would run to other countries and savagely bite a person's entire arm off. So the dog would attack people, and the entire arm of the person would come out. And then when the arm was ripped off, the person would fall to the ground, sit on the ground, and hold their ripped off arm. And they would cry and cry and cry like that. And every time the dog attacked people, old people, I saw it attacked old women, I saw it attacked young children. Every time the dog attacked people, the dog got more and more vicious. And Obama used to sit and watch his dog do this, and he never, ever stopped the dog. And then one day, after the dog had really developed a lust for human flesh, it became so savage, that dog. One day, all of a sudden, a wind came out of nowhere and grabbed up that dog and somersaulted it and slammed it into a body of water. But the dog didn't sink into the water. The dog's body lay on top of the water, and all around the world, people observed the dead body of the dog floating on the water, and they were smiling and smiling and smiling. All the people whose arms had been bitten off around the world, all the people who had been attacked by that savage dog, when the wind grabbed that dog and slammed it into the water, the dog died, but the dog did not sink into the water. The dog just lay there in the water, and everyone began smiling. All the armless people were smiling, and they were so happy. And that prophecy is on the blog, and the Lord revealed to me that Obama was a very savage president, but he was so charming and he was so beguiling. And also, we have to be honest, American people are not that discerning when it comes to choosing leaders. You vote for teeth, you vote for hair, you vote for people who go and, we're gonna do this. As long as people are able to give a certain impression, people here tend to be extremely easily charmed. It's been like that since the days of the Kennedys. It's been like that since, ever since the presidents stopped being real leaders, true leaders, real statesmen. And it just began to become a fashion show of a kind. It's about what sounds good to the ear. It's about also what builds up American pride. And then such a person would be elected. And so what the Lord revealed to me is that Obama was actually an extremely wicked and vindictive person, a very sneaky person who would be able to sneak in a lot of attacks. This man made a lot of promises that he was not going to, please excuse the light. That's better. He made a lot of promises that he was not going to pursue the same type of warmongering, power-hungry American imperialist policies as his predecessor, George Bush Jr. But in fact, he had probably the highest number of drone strikes recorded. He ordered a lot of strikes. He was behind a lot of skirmishes in places like Syria. And so he had a lot of blood on his hands, but because he was such a statesman, because he had such a high likability factor, because he had the power of the US media, and also this feverish thing that happens here in America when people get an idea into their heads, such as during the recent eclipse. It's almost something like froth. It's almost something like, it's a kind of madness, actually, that raises up in the population. And once they get an idea into their heads and their hearts, it becomes a powerful juggernaut on its own. It becomes fascination with the thing, fascination with the person. It becomes a fever. There's hats to sell and t-shirts, and there's appearances to make and stuff like that. And outside of Mr. Kennedy and perhaps President Bill Clinton, Barack Obama had the highest likability factor, not only locally, but around the world of any president up to that time. People outside the country loved this man. They loved him sometimes, in some cases, not even for anything that he had accomplished. They loved him just because he was black. So just because his skin matched their skin all around the world, there were entire continents going crazy over this man. Here in America, it was seen as a homegrown accomplishment that finally some kind of equality had risen. One of us, quote fingers, had risen to the top office. And yet, behind it all, the Lord Jesus Christ, who is outside of time, space, and all American fever, was watching as America unknowingly threw open the gates of Troy and welcomed into her midst the beast who came actually from another place. And so as I watched this sudden wind come and snatch up this man, I was reminded of the dream where a wind snatched up that very vicious dog, which the Lord revealed is the U.S. military that Obama highly weaponized during his presidency to attack many places and cause a lot of harm to people in other countries. The dog was killed, and in the same way, this gust of wind picked up this madman, cast him into the water, and he died instantly. And just like the evil dog of Obama, this man did not sink. His body rested upon the water, and it stayed there inside of everyone. And I was thinking, oh no, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. And the people in that African village were heartbroken. They were so dismayed. I mean, in our living room, my family watching, someone in my family went, oh no. But I was thinking, oh no, in a different fashion. And the people in that African village were inconsolable. And then someone in my home said, but wait, look, it's not over. And the man's body was laying on top of the water. And then, to my shock, so we're watching through the TV screen. This thing is being beamed to us. Okay, it's being broadcast to us. I began to see something magnificent coming down from the sky. I saw a black angel coming down from the sky. This angel had a anatomically perfect body. So if you are looking for the perfect body of a man, male perfection in terms of muscle tone and everything like that, that is what I saw coming down from the sky. The only bow to modesty that this angel was wearing was a loincloth that he had around his waist, and he had huge wings spreading out, outstretched white wings, and he was coming down as slow as you can imagine from the sky. He came down with all fanfare. His arms were thrown out exactly in this beatific pose. Worship me. He had his head thrown back, and I wrote in both dreams that I had when I saw this angel. I've seen this angel exactly like this only twice. He was just like the rock gods. You know, when these rock concerts, when these old rockers, not the new breed, but the old rockers, they pour their heart and soul into a show. Maybe someone like Prince, you know, they pour their heart and soul into a show. And then it comes to the point where they just leave the band to rock out. And they just walk around the stage and just spread their arms. And they're just in this thing like, give me love. And aren't we the best? And give it up for us. You know you want to, that kind of thing. That's what this angel was doing, coming down from the heaven. He wanted so much to be praised, to be worshipped. That much was very evident. He had his feet crossed exactly like Jesus's feet on the cross. So Jesus's feet were placed one over another. He wasn't crucified with his feet apart. His feet were placed one over another, and one single nail was driven through the feet. And that's exactly how this angel had his feet, in that posture. And he came down, and as I watched, he went feet first into the dead body of this man that was laying on top of the water. But what shocked me is nobody else saw this angel coming down from the heaven and entering into this man. The angel came down and started to go feet first into the man. And I'm looking at the people around me, and I'm watching the African villagers who are wailing and lamenting as they're watching this dead body that keeps floating on the water and will not sink. Everyone was filled with extreme sorrow watching this dead, red-eyed, crazy man floating on the water. But I alone saw that black angel coming down, and I was shocked. He entered into the dead man feet first, as if the man was no more solid than jello, and he kept going into him until the whole of him entered the man. Suddenly, this dead man woke up. The dead man woke up with a gasp, and he coughed when he came back to life, and then his body somersaulted out of the water and landed on a hill on the right. Please listen. When this man landed at the top of that hill on the right, he was no longer black. He had turned into a white man with long brown hair, with a pristine white robe, wearing a crown of thorns on his head. As I observed that white man that was at the top of that hill on the right, his hands and his feet were pierced, and I saw dark red old blood in that place, just as Jesus had when he rose after his crucifixion. This man knelt down at the top of that hill, and he began to pray. He started praying in this very beatific mosaic. You know the way they paint images of Jesus praying to the Father, and there's light, and it just looks so intimate. That's how this man was praying. And all the black people in that black village When he came back to life, they were overwhelmed with joy. They were so filled with rejoicing. They were amazed to see this man alive again, and they could not contain their rejoicing. They began to dance. They began to beat drums. They began to do everything. They were praising God. They were attributing this great miracle to God. And as one man, these people began to follow that white man who looks exactly like Jesus as we have always known him. So perhaps in the earlier period, Jesus used to be presented as blonde. But then people woke up and realized that, we can only get away with this for so long. We're no longer in the Renaissance where blondes were praised. And besides, people have now started to read their Bible a little bit better. And they know that the region where Jesus could be found was Palestine. And it's very, very unlikely that those dark-eyed, dark-haired people suddenly produced a blonde. So let's change the image. So now, I think for the last 50 or maybe even 100 years, the contemporary images of Jesus that we have depict him as dark-haired and dark-eyed, so that it is more congruent with what the Bible says. However, I was very shocked at the behavior of the people in the village. They saw the color of the man when he started out. They saw the color of the man when he was grabbed by what can only be the divine judgment of the Lord and cast into the water and lost his life. But when he woke up right in front of them and landed on a hill, a very high hill on the right, as a white person, these people didn't have a break in the narrative. It was as if they had forgotten everything that the man looked like in life and death, and they were just following this new version of this man with absolutely no problem. But I was horrified beyond belief. I was horrified beyond description, and I simply could not absorb what I was feeling. I had so many questions. How does a black person turn white? First of all, how can Jesus be a madman? Because I had seen the madness in the man when nobody else perceived it. I could see he was not a normal person. He was not okay. So how could this mad person, water or not, angel or not, be transformed into Jesus? And had nobody seen this big black angel that came down from the sky and entered into that man? Did they not know that the entry of that angel into the man is actually what caused the man to come back to life? What's going on, and how come nobody else is paying attention? And so my family was locked into watching this drama, but I was so disturbed that I wasn't even seated anymore. Men watch their football games like that. When it gets to the point where the action and the drama is too much for them, they don't sit. They tend to stand and they're watching like this. And so I also was standing and following like that. And then the camera pans to the hill, zooms in on this man, and he finally finishes his personalized strange person to heaven prayer that is being televised. This thing was being televised all over the world. So it was not just beaming into my home. It was being televised worldwide. The man on the hill rose from his prayer, and he had this very misty look on his face. A misty look is a look of a person who doesn't even know what a problem is. This is someone who is unacquainted with issues, struggle, problems, or anything to do with human life. You have a misty look. It's usually associated with being in love, being on cloud nine, and just being unable to relate. He had that look on his face, and then he turned like this, and he just begins to walk off like this. And the camera is following him. And all around the world, people connected to this man, and they started following him. I'm talking about the size of crowd that man had on that hill was no small crowd. There's no human being on this earth who has gathered a crowd as big as that, as wrapped as that, as locked in as that. Wherever this man went, people of all races, backgrounds, creeds, religions, they locked into this man that had come, and they followed him in one accord. That was what was on my heart as I was having this dream. With one accord, they followed him. And I suddenly found that I wasn't at home anymore. I wasn't at home watching this thing anymore. For some reason, I suddenly appeared there on that hill with everybody who had followed him when he was now coming down the hill and now apparently going to start his ministry. People were following this man, but I was so repulsed. I'm talking about so repulsed and so filled with hatred against this person that I knew I would never follow him. I turned because I had seen this man's whole story. I had seen his insanity in the village. I had seen his death. I had seen what actually brought him to life. And I knew that he was false when he was on that hill praying. I knew that he was not Jesus, but he was just some crazy, random black person who had died and then through some kind of power had been risen back to life and had somehow changed his color, changed his entire appearance, and was now looking different. In the dream, this is the directions that I observed. The African village was on the left-hand side, next to a body of water, which was in the middle. And the hill of prayer, where the man ended up after he resurrected, was on the right. But when this man started pulling followers, I saw that he made a deliberate turn and began to walk to the left. And the people also turned and followed him to the left, whereas I turned very sharply and I went to the right. Now, in the Bible, you know that Jesus says that the judgment he's going to come and bring will be a very deliberate judgment. Our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, says that when he comes back, he is going to judge all people according to what they have done. And he says clearly that those who are goats, they are disobedient. They follow after the devil. They are like Satan in all their ways, all their desires, all their ideologies, the things that they support, the things that they lust after, the things that they do, and the things that are deep in them are exactly like what is inside Satan. That is why Satan is called the father of those who do like him. He says that those are goats. Jesus says that those are goats, and he said that he would put them on the left, and he said that he would put the sheep on his right. And that tells us that Jesus is going to stand between sheep and goat. There will not be any way for a goat at the time of judgment to say, you know what? The sheep life looks better. I'm sorry for the way I've been living. I'm sorry for the things I've been doing. I want to change. It will be impossible. At the time of the Lord's judgment, the goats will go to the left. The sheep will go to the right. That man who initially started off on the right made a deliberate turn and went to the left. Everybody followed him without even paying attention, and they went to the left with him. But I turned and I started going to the right. And as I was walking away, I felt a tearing pain in my ankle. I felt this horrific ripping pain in one of my ankles, and I looked down because the pain was so much that it felt like one of my muscles was being ripped out of my body. And I saw down there a cord. A cord was being ripped out of my ankle that was eternally separating me from the world and from that man especially. Because when that man came into this world, he became physically bodily the God of this world. So a cord was being torn out of me that separated me from the world and from that man especially. And I could feel that this cord, prior to being taken out, was tugging on me very strongly. The cord was tugging on me and trying to get me to follow this man. It wanted to pull me towards him, but I had already rejected the man in my heart. And so the tugging of the cord had no effect on me. I had already made my decision that I will never follow this man. And so I started to walk off to the right. And as a result, as I was walking, the cord pulled taut, and then it ripped off me completely. Now, when I woke up from this dream, I was so confused. I had so many questions. I was saying, Lord, what is that? Who changes skin color like that? How could the people not perceive the madness in this man? The man's clothes were ripped, and yet they're treating him like the chief of chiefs that they've ever seen in their village. I had so many questions. I was saying, Lord, first of all, Satan, that angel, was black. Lord, what are you saying? This is too much for me. Are the angels black? I was asking God so many questions. My mind was racing, and I was just asking these questions in my heart. The only answer that the Holy Spirit gave me was to say, they always change everything around to fit what they want to show. They turn everything upside down, and they make it what it is not. And I lay in bed, and I was seriously marveling at what I had seen, and also at the Lord's words. So this is the first dream. This dream is November 23rd, 2020, and the title is The Angel Who Entered the Man. And what you are seeing God depict here, for those of us who, there are people in America who absolutely know that this man that is called Obama has been the subject of controversy concerning his birth, concerning his origin. Yes, he has given one story that he has, I think, a Kenyan father and an Indonesian mother. And the reason that he was qualified to hold U.S. citizenship and to run for office is that he was born in Hawaii. So the story goes, and yet there has been so much contention over the entire period of the 8 years that he was in power. So much contention, so many people trying to speak, so much controversy, and people have one view or another that I'm not going to involve myself in at this time. What is very clear here is that the Lord used this dream to show that this man's point of origin is outside of this nation for sure, that he has an origin point in Africa, and that in Africa he is beloved, he is venerated, he is looked up to even more than or equal to Africa's other hero, Nelson Mandela. But what God is showing is that there has been a sleeping madness in this man that has not been apparent to the people in Africa, that they venerate this man. To venerate someone means to look up to a person and basically say, you are father, you are big brother, we honor you and we respect you, because though you came from among us, you went all the way to America and you didn't just succeed. You didn't just join the government. You became the government. You rose to the highest possible office and you were seated there and you ran that very powerful nation that many of us wish we could go to. Many of us wish we could go and live there. We wish that we were Americans. You ran that powerful nation for 8 years straight. If that isn't an accomplishment, Barack Obama, we don't know what is. And yet God was showing that is a person ruled on the inside by instability of the mind. He's not okay there. There's madness. And this is not the kind of madness that you will ever perceive at a dinner. This thing, the reason that other people didn't see it is because you can never perceive spiritual madness. If God doesn't actually show you that people are cooked on the inside, and I do mean cooked, as in psychopathic in the head, sociopathic in the head, murderers on the inside, you will never know. Some of the most dangerous people have the highest visible levels of likability and social charm. And that is why they're so hard to perceive. They're so hard to catch. And what God is showing here is that his origin point, there will come a time when an attempt will be made on this man's life. Just give me a moment and I will find a very brief snippet that I think I received on March the 30th. Just a moment, please. And so here it is. It's a very brief snippet that I received at 7 a.m. in the morning, March 29th, 2016. The Lord was telling me all the way back then in 2016, my daughter, I really want you to build yourself up in your most holy faith. He was talking to me at 7 a.m. in the morning, and he was telling me it's very necessary for you to get yourself settled in life and also settled spiritually. Spiritually settled means that you're growing. Spiritually settled means that you're not stagnant. Spiritually settled also means something that I share here all the time. If you're not able to rise to the challenges that are ahead of us, it is very, very likely, and I'm not going to cut corners, I'm not going to temper anything down. It is very likely that you might lose your life. It is very likely that those you love, you will not be able to protect them. You will not be able to keep them safe, whether it is natural safety, spiritual safety, you will not be able to protect them. And a lot of people are going to die. A lot, millions of people are going to die around the world. And there is nothing that can help that, because the powers, the spirits that will be coming against humanity in this earth. I've always said to you that they are not only savage, but they are savage and merciless, and they are merciless and unrelenting, which means that as you fight them, you will tire because you are flesh, and you will need to know how to draw on the Lord and refill. But most people do not know how to refill themselves and refresh themselves in God so that they can head back out to the spiritual battle. Spirits don't tire. They don't have flesh. They don't need sleep. They don't need food. They are on the job, on the grind 24 hours a day. And so if you as a Christian are not mobile on your feet, if you as a Christian do not know how to quickly run into the Lord, who is a fortress and a strong tower, and say, oh Lord, protect me. My enemies are too strong for me. Many Christians don't even know how to go to God and pray and say, Lord, preserve my life, for my enemies are too strong for me. They walk around in this modern age where people are getting poisoned in the spirit, where people are getting stoned and stabbed and killed in the spirit, and then dying in the natural world. And the doctors are saying, this is very strange because your scans show nothing. They walk around saying these vapid sayings like, oh no, God's got this. Of course, God's got this. But the thing is, where are you going to be? God can guard it and you'll still be in your grave, because you are improperly prepared, because you are a poor spiritual warrior, because you don't know that the church is glorious as an army with banners. You just thought that Jesus would come down and handle everything. And yet you hear that fake Jesus is coming down first to deceive the whole world. So the Lord was saying to me on Tuesday, March the 29th, 2016, that I should work at settling myself and growing in my faith. And he said, dark times are coming to this country. Hard times are coming, and it is therefore best to be settled in your spirit before they come. And the Lord told me back then in 2016, he said, an attempt would be made on Barack Obama's life. And when this attempt is made, he said that Obama will not survive it. But the Lord did not tell me when such a thing would happen. Just a moment, please. And so you're hearing in this first dream that there is a spiritual identity that many people are not aware of. People are not aware of it in Africa. There's people in America who are not aware of it. There's people in Europe. There's people all over the world who are still operating on a surface estimation, a surface view of who they know Barack Obama to be. The guy, the senator from Chicago who beat the odds and became the first black president of the United States. But God is not interested in black presidents or whatever else. God is interested in people knowing that harm is on the way. And why is it important for God to tell us this? Because if you are not aware that harm is on the way and you continue to be in love with harm, if you continue to be enamored of harm, it will be very easy for harm to kill you, because up until the last moment when a fatal blow is struck against you, you will not be expecting it. You will not be prepared for it. Your heart, your chest will be wide open, loving this person, following this person. As you can see, the acclaim that this man had, the following that this man had. I don't have a realization or full understanding of how a person can change their appearance in front of other people and the people still accept it. But what I do know of the end days is that spiritual seduction is a real power. And I've always said that in the end times, I've even seen that people won't look like themselves. I've said that a lot of people, there's going to be some kind of change. There's going to be some kind of shift, and the world is going to be different. I shared an instance where I said that I saw a man who was an accountant. This man was an accountant. Let's name this man Harold. I saw in the beast system, the end times, that there was a man who was a normal accountant guy. His name, let's call him Harold. I saw Harold at a mixer. And I saw Harold extend his hand with so much confidence. And the way he was dressed, the way he carried himself was completely different from who I knew Harold actually was. I don't actually know this person. I'm saying that I saw this in one of my dreams. Harold extended his hand and he said, "Hi, I'm Harold Burns. And I am..." Harold introduced himself as the owner of a successful chain of car dealerships. That's who Harold said he was. But Harold was not that. Harold had been mind controlled in the beast system. Harold had been given a completely new identity, a completely new set of memories, a completely new life, a completely new wife. As far as Harold was concerned, he had been in cars since he was a boy. He learned cars from his daddy. They started with one dealership, and then with grandpa, bless God, they worked it up into two, and soon, well, we've got dealerships around the country. And I'm looking at this man and I'm thinking, I can see who you actually are or were. You used to crunch numbers. I'm not saying that being an accountant is bad, but being an accountant is a far cry from someone who owns a successful chain of car stores. This man had no idea who he was. His mind had been completely taken from him. He had a new identity, and he wasn't like a person who was being forced to assume a new identity like someone in witness protection. No, Harold owned his identity 100%. Something had happened to him. Something had been done to him. I don't know if it was spiritually done. I don't know if it had happened to him in a lab. I don't know if they fed him some of the New World Order food that I said they'd be feeding people in camps. But as far as Harold knew, Harold was who Harold was saying to that person at the party. And I was amazed how a person's mind can become so cooked that they will confidently state facts that have never existed and that have never happened. And they even have the feelings in them of, I'm a self-made man. the feelings of pride and the feeling of, yeah, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. And yet in reality, none of that ever happened. And so that's the first dream. And you need to know, because I've had these dreams, that there will be some kind of mass gathering in the desert. And Jesus made reference to this, I think, in Matthew 24, when he says, it's either in one of the gospel that speaks of the end time. So it could be Matthew 24 or Luke 21 or Mark 13, where he says, and when they say to you, come, let us go to the desert, because he has appeared there. The Lord said, do not go there. Don't go to any mass gathering where they tell you Jesus has come back and Jesus is in the desert. And why is that obvious to us? Because when the Son of Man appears, he's going to appear, one, with a sign, and two, the Bible says that every eye is going to see him, and we will all mourn as one when we look upon him who we pierced. There's nobody who's going to be, for instance, in Canada and saying, oh, I wish I could get over to America because I hear that he's out in the desert. It's an outright lie. It's an outright lie. The appearance of Jesus is not going to be missed by anyone. This is another reason that rapture people really need to get themselves together. There's no secret rapture. You're not going anywhere in private with your clothes dropping on the ground and the juice that you were drinking shattering on the ground and planes crashing out of the sky because the pilot is simply going to disappear. And there's nothing like that. The Lord is coming back. The Bible says with the shout of the archangel. Has anyone ever heard an archangel shout? Do you imagine that the thing is going to have, there's going to be a trumpet, right? There's going to be trumpet sounds. There's going to be the archangel shouting. These angels, the Bible clearly talks about the strength of their vocal cords. It always says, and the angel cried out with a loud voice. For instance, we see the angel crying out against Mystery Babylon in Revelation 18. Is there a single nation that was not informed when Mystery Babylon, aka the United States of America, is being destroyed in a single hour? It says the kings of the earth and the merchants who had lived deliciously with her. That means India. That means all the way over there in Japan, Korea, and Burma and Thailand. All America's trading partners here in South America, that's pretty close. Canada, pretty close. Africa, not close at all. Australia, not close at all. Everyone will hear the angel yelling, fallen, fallen, and we will see the bombing. That angel will be making a spiritual announcement that will trigger things down here on earth that we are all going to look upon. So same with the coming of the Lord. And so this process by which one can change and people accept it without missing a beat is highly possible. And you've heard in this dream just how strongly people are going to be taken by this man. People are going to be so taken by this man, which is why, honestly, Americans, when I see you, how can it be Obama? Everybody hates him. Everybody hates him. Who? Who is everybody who hates him? Are you going to be able to remember your own name in the future? Didn't I say that the very people who are all over the internet now, it can't be Obama, we hate Obama, the Antichrist has to be popular. You're right. He's going to be adored. Just pray that it won't be by you. Just pray that when the spiritual seduction and the witchcraft, when Satan enters a person, do you know how spiritually radioactive that person will be? Have you glanced around the world today? Please, let's discuss this in full so that nothing can be left on the table. Have you glanced around the world today lately and seen the extent of evil that is taking place in the world today? Mind you, Satan isn't 10 toes on the ground with us, as he will be told to us by Revelation 13 that the dragon empowers the beast. All power of the one who is the beast in Revelation 13 will be drawn not from, oh, I want to do evil. It will not be conceivable human evil. It will be evil that is dreamt up in the mind of the original fallen angel, Satan himself. Have you looked at some of Satan's handiwork in the earth today? Have you heard any of the things that I discuss here on this blog? And this is just Satan's outsourcing. This is just his outsourcing work. Can you conceive of what it will be like when he is in a human body, radiating out power the same way that when Jesus was in a human body, he too was radiating out power? to heal blindness, to heal lameness, to cure leprosy, to raise the dead. And we know that he can do much more than that, because he's the God who stopped the sun when Joshua cried out. I'm just asking if you are assessing this thing properly, or are you still using your American political cycle, election cycle mind to try and grasp spiritual things? It will not be well with those who do this. This man is going to have power to deceive billions. He is going to have power to deceive billions. This is the person who is going to declare that the daily sacrifice should be stopped. This is the person who is going to stand in the temple and say that he is God. And so, that is the first dream.